Um, so good evening, everybody. My name is Tony J. Selimi. I'm a speaker, author, cognition expert, and business coach specializing in human behavior. And with me tonight, I have this incredible human being that we started doing some partnership work. And we both have a calling to help as many leaders, as many business owners out there to actually adopt certain business principles, as well as use emotional intelligence for them to be experts in their field and be extremely emotionally mature leaders. So please welcome Dr. Fadil Citaku, the founder of the Academy of Leadership Sciences in Switzerland. Fadil, welcome.
Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you for inviting me. And it is a great honor to work together with you towards making outstanding leaders and helping them in those challenges, as the world is actually facing a lot of challenges. And it's very nice to be with you in this interview this evening. Thank you.
You have an incredible story, Fadil, and this is what really inspired me to, say yes to you. It's a great way for leader needs to have that ability and that skill for people to say yes to them. So you did say yes to me, and let's go back a bit in your life. And where did you really start to think about the impact leaders have on ordinary people?
Yeah, Tony, it is, the leadership, it starts from the parenting, actually from mother at the very beginning, so fortunately each of us had the fate, let's say, to be born by a mother, and the first touch with leadership, it was actually our mothers. And as a child, so I had the opportunity to help my mother actually a little bit, so in leadership. So we were altogether 9 kids, and I was the biggest one, the oldest one, let's say the oldest, since the father, he was always working abroad. So she actually delegated me those leadership competencies to help her, raising up their kids, and so I could see how much effort she gave actually, and she did a great job. And father as well, as I said, he almost never was home actually, working and trying to bring some money home that he could go to school. So even as a child, I saw how important is this impact of leadership, this love, to give to others, this opportunity, to help the others grow. And then I always actually had on my mind, how to help people, how to help the others to grow, so when it wasn't probably coincidence. And to make it short, then when I did my PhD in medical education, so it was pretty clear actually that I wanted to investigate leadership competencies. So it was a long story, but to make it short, I saw that even in medicine and business and so on, so there is a gap of leadership competencies. And unfortunately, we know that the biggest threat today in the world, it is due to the non-competent leadership. So we can see some people are joining us now. Tony, so yeah, so that was shortly. Yeah.
Okay, and you were born in Kosovo, and now you are in Switzerland. Okay, tell us, what forced you to move to Switzerland?
Well, Tony, I studied in the English language and literature in Pristina at that time, and before I did my maturation in healthcare and medicine. And so I went to London actually. So before that war started in ex-Yugoslavia, I went to London to practice my English a little bit, and so stayed almost 2 years there. And it was a fate that I met my wife, which she was a Swiss, And then we were of course dreaming around to go to California or Australia, but we didn't make that. So the fate was Switzerland, and I tried to do the best here. So this was actually, let's say, it wasn't planned, but I landed here. You see.
You landed there, but let's go before that. You had some traumatic events happening to you as a child. or as an adult?
Oh, yeah, it was, of course, so as you know, in Kosovo, and it wasn't better in Macedonia, I believe, and in the other places where Albanians were living. So it was in 1981, and I never shared that with anybody, but it's nothing to hide, of course. And except in our last, we were talking about a little bit in our last symposium that we had. Yeah, it was, in 1981, the students in Kosovo, they started to demonstrate for more rights, because unfortunately we didn't get much rights in Kosovo, and it wasn't much better in Macedonia, especially, Albanians, they were treated as second-class citizens. And those students, they were, of course, unsatisfied and started to demonstrate. And of course, the whole nation was actually supporting them. And as a kid, I'm not sure, I was 11 or 12 years old, I had to write one essay in Albanian, and I only actually stated that our homeland is Albania, And the teacher was so much afraid, and director of school, so they actually, because the whole class was copying my essay, I was very good in writing, And so they were thinking then that it was something pushed from some, I don't know, some students or whatever. And to make it short, they brought, those in internal intelligence of Yugoslavian state, and they were hitting us and trying to tell us who pushed you as a kid to write such a thing. And indeed, it was, from my heart, because, we were Albanians, we were actually persecuted from the Serbs, so we wanted our homeland, Albania, so it was nothing wrong, actually. But anyway, they came and smashed us and tried to squeeze us and push us and tell us, who was telling you? It was that Adem Demaci, who was, one gentleman who spent, by the way, more than 30 years in prison, telling to Yugoslavian state that we need more rights, actually, nothing else. Just as Mandela did, by the way, it was the same. But of course, we weren't aligned because I was a kid. Of course, I admired him and I heard about him, but of course, I didn't know him, so I never met him and whatever. And anyway, so I wasn't sorry what I wrote, but, experiencing that and to align that with leadership, it is a big trauma, and of course, the more somebody tries to actually prohibit you the liberty to talk, liberty to feel, so it makes you even more resistant, and you say, actually, this regime, it is not good, and let's hope that it will break.
And how did that shape your idea about life, and what is it that you're here to do, especially how that led into, I would say, setting up the academy in Switzerland?
Yeah. Well, Tony, that was actually seeing, how one huge state, is afraid from one kid, let's say, or some kids, because I wasn't alone, I believe. And bearing in mind how important is, of course, as a kid, we faced those repressions. As I said, we faced, unfortunately, afterwards the war, and 1 million people of Albanians, they were deported from their own homelands, and many women, they were raped. I mean, estimated more than 20,000, many people got killed. My house in Renica, which I was born there and raised up, it was burned and bombarded by Serbian military and so on. I don't even have one picture to show to my kids, it's emotional. But of course, at that time, as they were, bombarding and killing kids and innocent people, and deporting the people, I was actually working in emergency and anesthesia here in Switzerland, saving lives. And, thinking that, how important is saving one life, it is for me, equal to the whole actually money of the world, And thinking and reflecting how people can be so idiots, and killing, people, and how much we were actually getting threat to save lives. So I always thinking, that I was thinking that this is, let's say, a lack of leadership in that part of the world. But I saw, by the way, Tony, lack of leadership even in the Western country, in Switzerland, the most developed country of the world. Seeing people, not having the leadership competencies and struggling around, shouting, And now we know, you know, after doing such a lot of study, we know how afraid are those people who, you know, swear or they shout at others, because we know that amygdala actually hijacks their brain, you know. So, of course, a biography, I mean, we started with a story, you know, of course, shaped probably that mind, but even in the most developed countries, such as in England that itself, in Switzerland, Germany, USA, and so on, I could see that there is a lack of leadership competencies. And then, yeah, so it was very clear that for my PhD, I'm going to investigate those leadership competencies, even though there were a lot of books written about. I liked, Tony, to see what is beyond that, what the science says about that. And we have done a very big study, actually, investigating German-speaking countries, English-speaking countries, to investigate those leadership competencies, that we have some sophisticated research methods, actually, you know, that supports us to see what are those competencies. Yeah.
And which year did you set up your academy?
Well, Tony, we have worked actually almost 7 years to set up, because when I have finished that, when I have finished my PhD and you know, got those results, we have investigated that time. During my PhD in medical education, I have investigated 6 countries, 3 German-speaking countries such as Switzerland, Germany, Austria, USA, Canada, and UK. And then we came really with a very big model of leadership competencies. And myself and professors, we were thinking, so what and who cares now? So what do we do with that? Of course, we have published this in British Medical Journal, which it is a big dream, let's say, from each scientist in medicine and healthcare. And since it was a very big study, as I said, with very rigid methodology, you know, so they accepted our this study part of it, which we have published. And then we said, so what and who cares? So we have made actually our aim to change the world in this leadership, you know, so starting with medicine, which it's a lot of job to do. And I know that you have a lot of clients actually from medicine, and then expanding that to business and to leadership in healthcare and medicine, leadership in business, leadership in higher education, leadership in law, and leadership in politics. So Academy of Leadership Sciences, which we have established 2016, but of course we have been working 7 years actually, developing programs, master programs, Master of Advanced Studies, certificates of Advanced Studies, Master of Sciences, and now even PhD programs, which of course in collaboration with some of the universities in Europe and out of Europe. And yeah, to your question, we have established Academy of Leadership Sciences Switzerland in 2014, 6.5 years ago. And yes, we are based in Zurich at World Trade Center, and we operate worldwide actually, and mostly online, but there are possibilities to meet here in Switzerland, but in Dubai and in Las Vegas and in Paris lately as well, because we collaborate with one university there as well, which we now offer together with this CAS Europe in Zurich, PhD programs as well in management, and with focus on leadership in politics, healthcare, and in business. Yeah.
And can you share with us who are the typical people who come to your academy, and what are their specific agendas, pains, problems, and then some examples of after what they finished, how did they use that in their reality?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Very, very important question. We have really very diversity of our students and clients, starting with from professors of medicine as well, which sometimes it's, I want to, you know, still remain modest, but they say sometimes, it is a quote, "Professor, you have changed my life." So, you know, it's pretty hard to say, I know how tough work is in medicine, but they have seen having had a really top positions, you know, CEOs or, you know, the chiefs of departments of medicine, and they know how much they struggle with things. And we know that, unfortunately, curriculum of medicine it teaches them, you know, of course, a lot of anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, and so on. They are very strong in this domain, you know, but unfortunately, they don't get any training, you know, how to lead. And based on their technical skills, they get, you know, promoted to the chiefs, to the CEOs and whatever, and then they struggle and have a lot of troubles because then they have to deal with people. And you know better than me that our brains, they are very different, you know, and so they see their challenges, you know. And what we have from the other domains as well, of course, such as we had pilots, you know, military pilots as well. We had, you know, really from different kind of, you know, from Africa, for example, in the energy and mines domain as well, technology, really different kind of range of people who, from the IT technology, from different kind of domains, even from the space, you know, physics and so on. And they all are very delighted, you know, and they see how much they lost actually in the meanwhile before they started to learn leadership competencies, because, you know, we are very much focused on leadership, but emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, you know, organizational theories, of course, decision making, and you know, different kind of courses which they take to us, and really it improves their life. This is regarding academia, but in the meanwhile, we have actually, beside that, we have, you know, the research part, which we ourselves professors, we are almost 50 people, you know, who have a lot of great background in research and academia, but as well people who have a great background like yourself in business, in different kind of corporation, and they you know, bring their experience, of course, and we help our students. But we have another part as well, Tony, what we are doing, you know, coaching, and that what we are doing together, coaching, training, and advising individuals and companies as well to improve actually. And I'm very delighted some of sessions we did even together, as you mentioned, in Facebook today. And there is as well, so sometimes they come individuals and sometimes they come corporates which say, hey, look, we have those troubles and can you please help us? And they are delighted as well that we offer our services. And I have to use the opportunity to mention now that I'm very delighted that you collaborate with us, Tony Selimi, one of the greatest men who knows the brain and knows the body and knows the psychology and knows actually how to improve, you know, let's say the outcome of each individual. And this is what we need, this holistic actually approach. And I am as well very much delighted now to have on board Professor Ethem Ramadan as well, who has been working a lot to improve himself and to transform himself. And he's one of the most successful actually businessmen in Europe, we can say. I mean, it is a coincidence that three of us, we share the same roots, you see, but we have improved and transformed ourselves in different kind of states, and the universe brought us together. So our aim is to help the others actually achieve the best from themselves, let's say, with all this experience that we have gathered. And I'm very, very much looking forward to that, to share those resources which we have. And we have seen in the symposium that we had in English that time, and people really gave us a lot of feedback, which we had 24 people who presented there and represented more than 14 countries. And we got a lot of feedback, which you were as a speaker there, Ethem and the others. And people want to learn, you know, those leadership competencies, emotional intelligence. They want to transform themselves. They want to change and, you know, to perform better, because people are marvelous, but we have to help them. They need a good mentor. They need a good mentor like Tony J. Selimi, a good mentor like Ethem Ramadan, like myself and the others.
And talking about mentorship, consulting, talking about the various courses that you do, I mean, I personally believe it's so important to have this continuous development, because the reality is the world around us consistently evolves, and so do the problems. Now, how important it is to have those leadership competencies and build on existing emotional intelligence, because everybody has an emotional intelligence. The question is to consistently upgrade it and build it to new levels to help you navigate better some of the challenges that life presents us today.
Well, Tony, yeah, absolutely very important issues actually. Our model that we have developed that time, as I mentioned before, investigating those countries that I mentioned, has been replicated and tested and retested almost in all continents actually in the meanwhile. And I'm really very delighted to see, you know, that it's being, at least in leadership science, we are talking in the rigid science, most used and cited from other scientists, which I really very much I like that is getting used. It's getting applied, to say better. And of course, 63 competencies, it's because of time, I cannot tell you now, but I can tell you shortly, you know, which we have done a factor analysis. So those 63 competencies, which can be learned actually, are incorporated in 5 domains. And at the very top, it came social responsibility. And it seems that those so-called leaders without leadership competencies seem to have forgotten a little bit, you know, now how important is this social responsibility. And I can tell you really, you know, that's why probably we are in the mess, because in the theories of management in 80s, 90s, you know, I mean, they were saying, yeah, maximize your profit, you know, and they didn't talk much about the social responsibility and how important is that. And that's why we are in the mess, I assume, Tony, and not only me, the other researchers can prove that as well. On the second part, I mean, the second domain, it came innovation. So it's very important, actually, you know, if you want to be innovative, that people have social responsibility. You know that we have one leadership climate in the corporation. And on the third part, it came self-management. I need to know myself. I need to, and that can be one very good alignment with emotional intelligence, because if I don't know myself, if I don't know my self-awareness, it's very important, very difficult to understand the others. And so this is a problem. And on the other domain, it is the fourth one, it is task management. So that means actually my task management as a leader, I have really to know. And the fifth one, it was justice orientation. So really, we lose our professionality, you know, as a leaders if we make differences, you know, between people, because just as parents, you know, that just as kids expect from parents to be treated equally, you know, the employees expect from us the same. Now I'm going to go to the other part of the emotional intelligence. You stated very well that we should have that, but unfortunately we have data as well that some of the kids, even they are in advantage, that they have a little bit more developed, and some of them a bit less. We have studies in 70s and 80s in Stanford University, those called marshmallow you know, study, you know, that very good, I know that. But it's interesting, you know, they did really one very long study with those people, you know. They were asking when they were kids, you know, in preschool, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, do you want one marshmallow now, or do you want 2 after 15 minutes? And they could see those who had, you know, this had, you know, the courage to wait, and this patient, they they got afterwards, when they were tested, when they were mid-30s, 35 years old, they got better in the career. They got they misused less, let's say, drugs and alcohol and so on. So it seems from the nature that some of us probably came to this world with a little bit more developed emotional intelligence. But we know that now from, you know, development of the brain, that this you know, matureness of the brain, especially this prefrontal cortex, it is in the Western country, let's say, about 25 years old, you know. So that means the older we get, this is a good thing, Tony, we have opportunity to get more emotional intelligent. But to your question, we can speed that, we can really help people, because, you know, when you see now in the boxing, you know, in the sport, Tyson, when he had taken a part of his opponent was bitten, actually, it costed him two millions, you know, so you see this. And we know a lot of big companies, we can mention many of them actually, which they lost billions probably just because of shortage of emotional intelligence, you know. So it's very important. 80% actually that predicts your success, it's emotional intelligence.
Well, I believe emotions are the biggest killer of success anyway, and everything else in your life, because basically nobody wants to hang around people who are not in control of themselves. You know, whether you go into a meeting, whether you go into negotiation, whether you are in the family environment, whether you are in friends, whether you are socially somewhere, no matter where you are, you know, people tend to go away from people who are emotional. And if there's one reason for people to step and take action, is that by more having this mastery of your emotions, the more benefits you will have in every area in your life. Now, I would love to know your definition of emotional intelligence, not the one that is out there.
Yeah.
But your one.
Yeah. Well, Tony, it is actually nothing else than knowing yourself. So really, we have to know ourselves. We have to know, I've been teaching almost 22 years in Switzerland, and teaching in healthcare, and teaching, as I told you, you know, last 10 years, even medical doctors and professors and whatever. And it's very important to know the brain. It's a marvelous part of our body. And it has a lot of biases. That's a problem as well. And so if I know the biases of my brain, actually, so then I always say that people are absolutely always marvelous. But if they are aware of their own brain, that's very important, actually. We don't expect that everybody now to learn the whole anatomy, physiology of the brain, but we have to get to know our own brain, actually. And those brains, just as you know, very good, they are very different. So what I say, actually, the most important in emotional intelligence is to get to know yourself, you know, so that means actually knowing your brain, but of course knowing your body as well, because those signals that they come to the brain, especially in when the emotions, they hijack us, so-called amygdala hijacking, it's very important. So with other words, to make it short, it's knowing yourself, but knowing as well, actually, the others, you know, so knowing the others as well, especially how the brains of the others can work. And we have similarities here as well, but we have, of course, differences as well. But if I know myself on the first time, as we call this self-awareness, so the likelihood to know the others, no matter how different people are, and I know, so you have to deal with all kind of people worldwide, all different kind of races, all different kind of human beings. And I know how a great job you do, you know, so then we can step easier actually in their shoes, let's say, and get to know the others. And there is no hate anymore, no matter what people, as I told my story, did to me, to my family and whatever. So you just don't have actually, you know, you don't have reasons to hate. And I mean, actually, you are very sorry about those people who, you know, you know, try to grasp things, because it's enough in this world. So to make it short, get to know yourself, get to know your emotions, because anatomically and physiologically, the whole brain has a lot to do with emotions. They are there. You cannot amputate them because we need them, but all we need, we have to be aware of that. And starting with symptoms, for example, how my body senses the symptoms or the signs in my brain when I'm angry, for example, or things like that. And try, you know, to actually give another color to that, you know, try to find one reason. Why is that? You know, and the problem is, Tony, in each culture that I know, I do teach in 3 languages, you know, I do teach, but I know one more language which I don't teach. And in all of those 4 languages that I know, it is that we have a very lack of knowledge, even naming those emotions. And if you cannot name something, it's very hard to know that it occurs, that it exists.
Yes, absolutely. If you can't name something, you can't even tackle it. You can't go
Exactly.
there at all.
Yeah.
But this is
Absolutely.
appropriate to mention, like the famous quote by Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself; everyone else is taken."
Yeah. Great.
So, how people can learn more effectively? Not only learn effectively, but also apply what they learn effectively.
Well, Tony, it's a great question. And really, I wasn't running after titles, when I started to teach almost 22 years ago, I like to become one good teacher, because it's, good teachers, they can affect us like for good, and let's say, not competent teachers, because I never use that word, only now bad people, so non-competent, I call that. Non-competent teachers, they can destroy you, they can, if they tell you, look, Fadil or Tony, you will never learn mathematics, so that is, it destroys you, of course. So my aim was to get to know how people learn. And what I learned, Tony, and what the research, based in research is, you really we have to have one safe environment. And this is very important, Tony, for the academia, let's say, or for preschool kids, for, school kids, elementary school, whatever, higher education, at work as well, because always we have to work in corporates, very important. And for academics as well, we have to go in one, we have to give them one safe environment. And I have to tell you, I had opportunity, and I am supervisor even in it is one ETH. It is always the best university in Europe, always. In continent where we are, and it was from the starting after Second World War. Always they are the best. And I'm really fortunate to be a supervisor there, and mentoring students after they have finished the master. But what I said, and I told them, I told the leaders of this university that I dislike what you do with some of students. And fortunately, not every professor, but we had on media, that's why I bring it here. They were, those professors, they were squeezing so much PhD students, you see. So how can you afford that, being the best university in Europe? Always they are in the rank between 4 and let's say 8 worldwide. And how can you allow, they get some of professors of them, they are Nobel Prizes, almost every year, they have 3 or 4, I don't exaggerate really, in physics, in different kind of domains, which they get Nobel Prizes, And how can we, it was in the media, how much some of the PhD students get struggled, because professors, they don't have any emotional intelligence, it could be genius, in their domain. And this is, Tony, the problem. To make it short, we need those students, we need those people in corporates, they need to be safe, in order that they are innovative. Because if, go and squeeze them and you tell them, become productive now, Fadil, forget it. Because now the whole brain, it gets captured by amygdala, and no information can go in this creative part, in this prefrontal cortex, that people can get something. So our brain, Tony, it's very important to share with audiences. I know that you know those things, but for audiences, it needs really to become calm and quiet. So, and anytime we raise our voice, so actually our brain, it is afraid, So the biggest killer to learn, it is being afraid. And so this is responsibility for each student to make environment that her colleague or his colleague feels good. But it is, of course, for teacher, it is for the supervisor, it is for the professors, it's for teachers, it's for parents as well. And so this is actually the most important in learning. And of course, the second thing, it is, that we try the phenomena to connect with each other, because those synapses, they need to connect actually. And not just to, try to memorize, some things. And unfortunately, many schools that I know, they fail in that as well. They don't want phenomena, and asking. I know that you are one of the biggest master that ask a lot of questions. By asking questions, always we actually initiate so-called cognitive conflicts, that they try, to connect the synapses to find one answer for themselves, So those are really very, very important things.
And one of the quotes recently I shared was about teaching. And I shared how the mediocre teachers tells. The good teachers explain, the superior teachers demonstrate,
Okay.
and great teachers educate, but
Okay.
the extraordinary teachers challenges, questions,
Great.
supports, and inspires you to maximize your human potential. So throughout life, teachers from different teachers that I've learned, I created this quote basically because no matter where you are in your evolution of self, there's always room for that extra learning. And this is what I believe makes great leaders and great teachers, people who are receptive to learning, receptive to criticism. So on that point, I would like to ask you how important it is for leaders to accept and listen to the criticism that people may give them.
Well, Tony, it's very important, and thanks for that quote. I really love it, what you said. So you have to know how to ask questions, as you said. But now to this question, very important, Tony. And unfortunately, the research data tells us that even though the CEOs and the biggest leaders, need the most feedback, actually, how they perform and so on, they almost never ask for feedback. And you know what? Why? Because they are afraid that might get some non-comfortable feedback. And this is, again, this environment, that we have really, the most in charge for the culture in one environment, it is the leader, because, he has a lot of power, and he has really to try and make this empowerment there, and really make one safe environment that I can come to you, Tony, as my CEO, my leader, and say, hey, look, it's a great what you have achieved, but please, think about this. Are you able to listen, for example? It's interesting that, Tony, in most of the cases, this is a problem, by the way, and it's really one very acute problem, that they are not able to listen. They just get one of the pieces of information and they make up their mind. It's interesting, even in medicine, we see, that analogy. One medical doctor averagely, there are data that they listen about 16 seconds what the patient says, you see. An analogy to that, it is CEOs, and that is a big problem. So we really have to be good listeners, active listening, asking questions, summarizing, and so on. And the biggest problem is, Tony, due to this shortage of those competencies. We have data from the Yale University Center of Emotional Intelligence. They really have a very good data. I encourage all people who like this domain. They have a lot of publication there, and they have published, very big study in the whole USA. 70% of people are unsatisfied at work, and this is, responsibility. Among others, or the biggest responsibility we can say it is due to those non-competent leaders there. And can you imagine they shift, this unsatisfactory, to the family, the kids, they get stressed as well. Of course, at the end of the day, mother, father, they have to pay the bills, and they go there. And it's interesting as well. On Mondays, we have data as well. They get heart attack people because they rather go, to die than to work, but they have to go. So we have to make, those insights actually to change something. The same problem with kids, for example. They are overstressed at school, or they are bored at school, actually. And again, 70%, it is one consequence, but either they are overstressed or it is, boring, what. So we have to reflect that as well, that we don't have one stressed, actually, society. And unfortunately, we got it. And we know how non-competent leaders are, even now in those challenges with this virus now, which not a proper communication, not a proper, measures. Nobody wanted to work together, and so this is, I always say, Tony, and really I can justify that, the biggest threat that the world today has comes from non-competent leaders, not from the virus.
Yes, I mean, we all seen the catastrophic effect basically of something so micro, but then none of the leaders were prepared to really deal with this kind of situations, and hopefully this great, I would say, incitement for them to take the action they need to get into becoming better leaders, and potentially doing one of those courses at the Academy of Leadership of Sciences, and so they can actually work better together. And on that point, how can one get in touch with you, and also how can they make a decision whether the courses you are offering is the best thing for them to do?
Well, Tony, Academy of Leadership Sciences Switzerland, as I said, is based in World Trade Center Zurich. I'm about 5 minutes drive from Zurich Airport. It's a very strategic place. And yes, we offer almost everything online. So really all our programs and courses can be taken, beside working 100% and having a family and so on. And additionally to that, Tony, those CEOs and people who have already positions and need our aim, actually, just as they do with you, then they can contact us at www.alss-edu.ch. It is our homepage. They can see all our activities and leave one message there. Or they can send us one mail, the official mail. It is info, for information, info at alss-edu.ch. And the good thing is, Tony, so we have to deal, we work now, collaborate together with you, with Fatem and many others. And, we have to deal with very, let's say, familiar people from business, from politics and whatever. And it's very important that everything, it is confidential, of course, and nobody knows actually. So we are not those who go and tell, take one flag and say, we have advised that one and like that. So we are here, and fortunately we have many, let's say, customers who use this opportunity. And now joining our experiences, especially with you and with Fatem, this is one unique opportunity, I think, because we have so much to give, those people who struggle, and it's really worth paying for that. And we can speed, that that development of leadership, I believe in decades and so on. And yes, so we have done many speeches together, and many of them are in planning, of course, in many domains. We have plans even in politics now, those diaspora, but anybody worldwide, which of course you are a key speaker there, and Tem as well, and many others, from here and around the world. And yes, we have many courses, many workshops, which we are online together with you as well. But we can, train them individually and in groups, just as they want worldwide. They can tell us, where are their needs, and we even help them, Tony, to discover their needs, because, as one outstanding coach worldwide, sometimes people, they just don't know their needs. They are just in trouble, and they say, oh, look, we are in trouble. We help them to discover their needs together.
And finally, before I say thank you so much for this inspiring interview, I would love to leave the audience with your final one message you want them to take away.
Well, Tony, my message is believe in yourself and really learn as much as you want, and be aware what kind of mentor you have. So choose a mentor who transformed his or her life. Don't believe in those who talk, and promise and never never got one transformation on their own. And now, not to exaggerate that we are now together, but they can have some samples. I mean, I know what you have done. I know what Hetem has done. I know what I have done, and many others who are on board and work with ourselves. And we can really help investing in self-transformation, investing in growing, so it pays off. I mean, pay money and speed this transformation because you need. Impossible is nothing. So this quote from Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is one of the best samples that I actually take because he was one of the best athletes worldwide. And what I liked in him, it was that actually he always said impossible is nothing, and he was saying always, I am the best and I am the greatest. Doing this kind of self-awareness, but not putting the others down. He went in each culture helping people. And what I liked, he even gave one promise when he dies, that all those diversity of the faiths and religions come together. And I was following that life in CNN and telling my wife, look, actually, the great leaders, they unify people even after they die, you see. And so I wished, we had more people like Muhammad Ali that unifies people and not tries to divorce them and, to squeeze them and whatever. But I say always that, learning is learnable, but we have to want to learn and get a good mentor. Look, Tony Selimi is here. I mean, if you have a faith, just to learn with him, this is incredible. And so it can save a lot of sorrow. It can save a lot of trouble and keep healthy. It's a very important thing.
I think it's what I got out of this. It's great leaders unify people even after they're gone.
Exactly, Tony. Yeah.
That's a very beautiful ending to our conversation. And for all of you who are watching this broadcast, and I'll be sharing this on YouTube and Facebook, by all means, tag anybody who could benefit from Fadil, for the Academy, but also the courses that we do, and also individually what we have to offer. And share it with your social media. And especially the aim is to help a lot of people in the Balkans and in our countries to really bring this kind of work. So not only they benefit, not only their families benefit, but also their children, which are the future leaders of this world. And in enabling them and in empowering them and in educating them from a very young age to actually embody those leadership competences and emotional intelligence, we can collectively create a better world.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you very much for having me in this interview, and all the best to you, and all the best to the whole world, the human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks.
Thank you.